think of when I say the word old? Sounds turn to words when you give them meanings, and often these meanings are derived from experiences that we've gone through in life. But some words are so solidly set that most of us, when we hear them, we'll imagine the same things in our heads. So, for example, if I say the word apple, you'll most likely be thinking of red, even though there are green apples and, as I recently discovered, orange apples in this world as well. I believe old is one such word where the images that come into our heads are quite fixed already. So when I think of the term twilight years, I'm immediately reminded of that time before the sun sets, before the darkness comes, before you go to sleep. And I think it's so telling that we call old age a phase of your twilight years. It's almost like this is the phase of your life which is a wait for death. This is that time of your life when your body is decaying. You're slowly going down. You should stay indoors because, it's very, very polluted outside. But at the same time, you don't have work to do anymore. So you will be bored. So you should do something. But if you do go outside, then you should be very careful when you're driving because your eyesight is going bad. But, actually, on second thought, don't drive. Stay at home and get a good air purifier, eat light food, and make sure you have a physiotherapist on call. You really need that physiotherapist because how else will you move? You're not going to have a large family to make rotis for anymore. So you need someone to come and move your shoulders for you. That's the old age that I kept thinking of for a good chunk of my life. But then last year, I met my husband's grandfather, paternal grandfather, whom we call Dadaji, and he is 99. And I meet him and I spend some time with him, and he looks at me, and at that time I was dating his grandson, and he says, "Beta, congratulations on your living-in relationship. I don't approve of it, but I'm very happy to have met you." So I said, well, this is new. And over the years, over the last few months, actually, we spent a lot of time together. And we'll sit down and be eating, those hot chips, which every dietitian will tell you is bad for you. But we'll eat those and we'll be talking about Rocky or Rani ki prem kahani. Or he'll be asking me things like, why aren't people eating gehu anymore? What's wrong with them? In Hindi, of course, but it's great fun being with him. And I keep asking him, what's your secret? Like, Dadaji, you have to tell me, right? Like, you don't have teeth and you eat more samosas than I do. What are you doing? I need to know. So then one day he calls me Angel, a label which I feel I'm completely undeserving of, but he does. So he says, Angel, you keep asking me, how am I dealing with old age? I'm not dealing with anything. I'm still me. My body has changed, but my soul is still exactly the same as it always was. I don't consider myself to be old. This is Sonali Acharji, and you are listening to Health Wealth, a podcast that hopes to leave you feeling better informed when it comes to your well-being, but not so overwhelmed with facts and figures and doomsday predictions that you just lose all the motivation that you need to make those right choices for your health. When I was growing up, there were many, many things I wanted to be. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be the person who painted the lines on the road. At one point, I also wanted to be a crazy wife, which I think I fulfilled. But there were many things I wanted to be. But the one thing I didn't want to be was old. But I do now. Why is that? Why is it I'm actively waiting to grow old? And it isn't just because, taxes will be less and I'll get free tickets and, I'll get to accumulate all that wisdom which they say only age can bring. It's actually because of all the promises that healthcare infrastructure and technology offers to senior citizens today. I think many would not be agreeing with me on this because there is a wave of fear happening amongst elders and their caretakers recently in India because families are breaking up. They are going down in size. People are extremely busy. And there are worries about that. Who is going to look after me when I'm old? I mean, I'm not worried, but there are many people I've met who are, and they'll say things like, I don't know what's worse. Is it worse that my children don't live in the same city? Or is it worse that they live with me, but the day that I have to go for my dental implants is the day my son will have a presentation in office? It's the same day that his wife has to take the children for a K-pop makeover party. I mean, she was this was a friend's mother who was saying this to me, but she was very, very concerned and upset about the whole thing. And I said, there must be a way out. There must be something which you can do to make yourself independent. Why can't you take an Uber? And she said, I don't know how to use a phone. So we found her a class which teaches senior citizens how to use technology. And now she's independent. She's going everywhere. And it's so incredibly beautiful when you see someone at 70 or 80 embrace their life. It's I mean, for me, as a daughter who has a mother who's 70 with various health conditions, I consider it the greatest fortune of my life that she's completely independent. She will very happily, take an auto and go for an eco test and come back home and tell me in the evening so I don't worry about the results. She's out making new friends and has a busier social calendar than I do. I'm sure she does feel bad sometimes and wishes that, me and my husband were around more often. But if she does, she doesn't sit in that. She wants to go out and find solutions. What can I do to make the most of life? Because life is still within me. And it's fascinating how many new opportunities come up when you look for it. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to do this episode today, because infrastructurally, there are a lot more options available for senior citizens to get good care and live a good quality of life. But all I know is what the internet search throws up. So instead, we have someone who's going to give us a more realistic and informative answer to this. We have Mr. Rajat Mehta, who is the MD and CEO of Antara Senior Care. I still remember him from the time when he was the managing director and CEO of Max Healthcare. And he was also a founder member of Max Life Insurance. And thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
My pleasure, Shonali. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Before we started recording, we were talking about your career.
Yeah.
And you've worked in finance, healthcare, insurance. You must have seen such a variety of people. I wanted to know that regardless of age, do you feel that there's something that every human being sort of desires from life?
Absolutely. And you're right. I've seen a spectrum of people with a variety of needs. But one thing that stands out, each one of them, whether it was banking, insurance, healthcare, or seniors, they just need to feel wanted and cared for. So there's need for being relevant, respect. I've seen some patients who were end of life, but they were very careful about their dignity. And they were quite, upset if we, did something which was not right. So it's about care, wanted, feeling, center, relevance, self-respect. That cuts across. Of course, these days being financially independent, because seniors hate to ask their children for money, right?
Yeah.
So that is something which I've discovered, right now, and feeling of well-being. That's a behavior change I've noticed after COVID. A lot more investment into supplements, meditation, yoga, wellness, etc. But that cuts across, I guess.
Yeah. Every time I open the paper or I go online, there's all these articles talking about silver tsunamis. I almost feel like, a wave of old people is going to come on top of me. But if that is true, and statistics do show that we have an aging population coming up, do you think we're prepared for that as a country?
You're right. The word tsunami is, I think, the right word. We don't realize it, but the numbers are quite staggering. I mean, even today, the number of seniors in India is larger than the population of Japan. and Japan is struggling with, how to take care of its seniors. It's quite a tsunami. And also, I've noticed that as you get old, as I often say, four eyes start troubling you. It is impairment, immobility, instability, and incontinence. And it's a reality. Mental disorders are underdiagnosed in India. 40% of seniors have vision or cardiac issues. 74% have more than one morbidity. So it's really a tsunami in that sense. And I would feel that we are quite ill prepared as a country and as a society, right? So if I ask you this question, do you find the public infrastructure senior friendly? You will struggle.
I don't find it
You
young
don't.
person friendly only.
Yeah.
So
If I asked you for your mother or somebody else, God forbid, you need a wheelchair, you won't know which brand to buy, right? What diaper is good for an adult, you will struggle, right? So I think we're quite underprepared in terms of policies, frameworks, structure, financing, retirement. I'm glad that finally the Prime Minister pushed the Ayushman Bharat scheme to touch
Yeah.
70, right? Beyond 70, and the IRDA took away the age limit on health insurance. There are no financial products for India. Reverse mortgage never took off, right? There's no insurance after the age of 65, 70, right? So financing your retirement itself is a challenge at this
Yeah.
point of time. If you look at caregivers, there was an interesting piece I wrote, which I'm writing still, called Parenting the Parent. All of us talk about parenting, but nobody talks. So I'm a caregiver to my parents. My dad is now 95 and mom is 91. She's a dementia patient. Dad is now on bed, otherwise very active otherwise. And I've struggled to put a system of care for them, to have people. So if you've got capacity, uh, we used to say it needs 1.5, people per child. Same thing for elders. They behave like children. So where are you going to get this, horde of caregivers, for seniors? So I think it's time we started to pay attention. It'll take a decade for us to prepare. The government has started to pay attention to it, I must say. There are committees being set up. But in terms of policy, framework, financial solutions, we're working now with insurance companies to see what is possible to do, for seniors and caregivers, how to build capacity.
Yeah.
So we're quite underprepared, I would say, as a nation.
Because we also get exhausted as caregivers, right? I remember my mom saying that when her father was elder, she had 3 siblings to sort of share the emotions with. I'm a single child and there's so many like me. It's tiring to be a caregiver.
Quite tiring. And I have a personal story to share. So my mom was a dementia patient for the last 6, 7 years. My dad was a primary caregiver, right? But all of us were there. We stay in a joint family, right? I'm lucky to have the opportunity to serve them. After a few years, he started to show the same signs. And then it struck me, as we haven't paid attention to dad at all. All attention was on mom. And then we had to get him counseling, all that done, and he recovered. But I could see, so you're right, there's caregiver fatigue. I think it requires a lot of investment into capability building, training, as well as taking care of their fatigue, right? And counseling for them, as well. In some cases, I've seen that people tend to over empathize and they tend to take on the burden of that
We know.
pain, right? So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, actually, it's not just the fatigue emotionally, also even
Physically.
logistically, because work is, life now. I mean, either you're in traffic or on a call. And I was just telling someone that I got a new number thinking it'll make my life easier, work number. Now I have 4 gadgets and I don't know which one is ringing when. And in all of this, to remember, mom's gone for a test, what are the results, or a surgery, God forbid, happens in the middle of, year end or something, it's difficult.
Well, difficult, but it's a question of mindset. And I'm sorry to be provocative, right? But I think if you set up a system, it is possible to do. It takes effort. There's absolutely no doubt. And there's
How
no.
did you make yourself so strong?
Yeah. So you have to invest yourself. Even if I have 2 caregivers, I've realized without supervision, once in a while, they tend to go astray. So there's no choice. So between 4 of us, which is my 2 sons, my wife, and I, we vowed many years back that one of us will always be there, even if we have to travel. And that's a contract that we have amongst ourselves,
That helps.
right? And we discuss things, together, right? My dad was quite active 2 years back. Only after a fall, he's been immobile. So setting up the right system, looking at the caregivers, training them up personally, looking at all gadgets you need at home, from an oxygen concentrator to a suction machine to an IV stand, putting the system, in place. I was lucky to be from healthcare, so I could set it up, right? But it does take effort even today.
Yeah.
I mean, as they grow old, you can see the mannerism change, their ability to eat on their own changes. It does take effort,
You do
right?
feel like you
So,
lost your parent a while ago,
yeah, the other
actually.
thing which has helped me personally, I'm a follower of Sister Shivani for many, many years, and she's quite transformed our lives. And that has had us, I would say, a tremendous impact on all of us in the family.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned falling, and
Mhm.
that is something which a lot of caregivers are actively worried about, because a fall is actually, it really reduces the quality of life they're on. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of my friends are now actively seeking community homes or a better place for their parents to live, and it's not easy, because even if they find it, even if they find something like Antara, for example, you call yourself a senior care community, but that mindset is, you're throwing me out,
Mhm.
putting me into an old age home. So could you maybe start by just telling me, what is the difference between a senior care community and an old age home?
Mm. I think the moment you say old age, the images that conjure up in your mind are of, basic facilities, volunteers, charity, NGO, forced choice, one size fits all kind of offering. And that's true. Most old age homes are run by NGOs, people who are doing CSR, or by the government, right? The moment you shift your mindfulness is living. Senior living is like vibrant community, like minded, healthcare services, wellness services, meditation, yoga, curated calendars, hobby classes. It's absolutely a different, ball game. And by the way, it's quite prevalent now. After COVID, I noticed a lot of people getting into this sector. A lot of seniors accepting the concept themselves. It's a choice they are making now. So we took 8 years to establish Dehradun. We took 3 years to sell Noida, 340 units, and we've taken 1.5 months to sell two-thirds of Gurgaon. So it gives you an idea. And besides that, there are many other developers. So there are many options now, Sonali. It's not only senior living communities, there are assisted living homes, care homes, and people are now realizing the importance of providing care. And by the way, we're also trying a different concept now called the intergenerational living, the first concept in Gurgaon. Because seniors said, look, I don't want to see old people around me all the time, right? It's quite
Yeah.
obvious. So we set up a community which Max Estate is doing. We are the managers of the facility for seniors. There are 4 towers of normal residential and 2 towers of seniors. So they'll see life around them. They'll see children as well. Of course, we are mindful of their privacy, and what they need. So there are exclusive spaces, but they'll see life around them. So I think the concept is developing. The next few years will see a lot of push towards evolving this concept. As we get more and more older in the country.
Every time I read some interview or report on community life in a senior care home, it's always talking about, oh, I have new friends, and I'm enjoying myself. I'm not so lonely anymore, because loneliness takes its own physical
Yeah.
toll. But I'm hoping you'll be a fly on the wall and tell me, how do these friendships happen? Because that's also something, right? We don't think we'll make friends after a certain age.
Hmm. It's quite interesting. I noticed that in Dehradun and now in Noida as well. There are people who are buying it as a group of friends. So one person bought and he got somebody else, and they put a small, community together. I'm seeing it in Dehradun, now seeing it in Noida, where people have brought it together, right? I myself bought one unit in our facility now, and 6 of my friends followed me, right? So there's one way of creating that. Second, I know we have people who are well trained in that facility who become buddies to a person, and make sure that the person is able to now. And while making the sale, we make sure that every customer is met by us, irrespective of channel of sale. So we're able to then figure out, who goes like-minded community. So that's a conscious, effort, that we make. But I guess the curated calendars of engagement take care of the rest. The hobby classes, so when you cook together, when you do pottery together, do meditation and yoga, you strike a conversation, and that's how it begins.
Yeah. I might pronounce this wrong, but I found this concept so fascinating. In 2009, in Netherlands, they opened the world's first dementia village. And it's called, this is where I'm going to fumble, but Hogeweyk.
Hogeweyk.
Hogeweyk. And I loved it. I see their videos and it's all about active aging. They encourage all the residents to go to the supermarket, go to the cinema hall, go to the park. And so it's not, as a dementia patient, you're not just retired in. And like you said, we are underdiagnosing mental health issues in senior citizens. But for those who are diagnosed, do you think, one day we could invest in a similar concept in India?
Practically difficult. Intellectually, I would say right thing to do. I've seen one such concept in Bangalore, where they were attempted to do that, where they have a village kind of concept, a small village shop community they're trying to create. But it's very expensive to do so in India, right? So the economics of it don't pan out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I would say that, and that's a counseling I got as a caregiver, that while a dementia patient cannot communicate, he or she understands perfectly what you're doing or saying. So you have to mentally first think he or she is normal. That's the only way to interact, right? But if you look at a Dehradun community, and you must go there because even my saying it won't give you the impact. We have a theater. We have a heart which happens every Sunday, organic market. We have hobby classes, painting, pottery. People can do so. It's like a buzzing community with all the facilities. So people feel as if they're staying in a community. But I would love to look at a village because you can go around. You feel as if you're normal. It's very expensive in India to set up. Extremely expensive.
It is expensive even now to like for me, if I were to think of my old age, it isn't exactly cheap to invest in a senior care community.
Not really.
Really?
No, not really. So keep aside things like Dehradun, that's a resort style luxury. But if you look at Noida,
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
if you look at Noida, 1,500 square feet, 2,000 square feet, 1 to 2 crores, six to 8 rupees maintenance per square feet. Gurgaon, it's about 3 to 5 crores depending on size, 8 to 10 rupees per square feet. So no longer actually.
It's no longer.
And if you go to the south, even cheaper.
But you're able to bring the cost down without compromising on the
because you have
services.
economies of scale. It's condominium style, 340 people staying. So obviously economies of scale kick in. And since you don't have a large green area like Gurgaon, like Dehradun, you're able to control the cost as well, right? So it's possible to do.
And you can also have all these other classes you were talking about, yoga,
everything.
meditation,
Also, services don't change.
Services don't
The physical look and feel obviously changes, but services which keep you physically, mentally, emotionally, environmentally, they don't change.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And so you said that word buddy, right? When somebody comes in, and I would love to be a buddy one day. But I know that looking after somebody who's aging requires a specialized skill set. So do you train them?
Yes, we do.
And how do you train them to think like a 70-year-old?
So we have a lot of geriatric and dementia training. In fact, one of our courses is now being certified by Healthcare Sector Skills Council. It's a mandatory training, both at induction as well as refresher trainings that we do, which covers things like, how to understand the physical body of a senior, what happens with age, psychological issues, what signals to look for, right? Specifically in dementia patients, because they will never express, but the behavior starts to change. So, for example, in the memory care home that we only have one in Gurgaon, we train from the receptionist guard till the caregiver. Because see, everybody observes the senior in different, and observation tells you a lot, about the senior. But it's regular training. It's every 3 months, a module going in. And therefore, if you look at our values, we chose the word seva over service very carefully. Because the word seva, it has an emotional appeal to people, right? And that's been our constant endeavor to train people to have the mindset to serve a senior. But it does take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Because attrition is a reality in India. We don't get nurses in hospitals, what to talk of senior living facilities.
Yeah.
But it's a constant, treadmill of training and making sure people get the message. Also role modeling by seniors, by our own leaders. That's the best way of getting the message through.
So you do role
right?
plays?
So role modeling, no, as you walk, right? The way you greet a senior, the way you talk to a senior, the way you respond to a senior, people observe what you're saying and what you're doing. Any email that comes to you, any call that comes to you, right? I remember I just had to visit a very old lady in one of a care home because she was very upset with the facilities. And I just went there, happened to chat and sit with her. I could do nothing but listen, right? So that's what we do, right? But it takes effort.
Yeah. No, actually, listening is. Somebody told me recently, and it was such a profound thought that in a conversation, if you're just talking, it's actually a very abusive conversation because you're taking up all the space. And as you age, you need to really learn, or when you're looking after or conversing with someone who's elder, you really need to learn how to listen.
There's a company in the US called Seven Cups of Tea. It is on the Japanese philosophy. To know a person, need to have 7 cups of tea with the person. They only provide listeners.
Yeah.
They do nothing else. But you're absolutely right. Seniors just need somebody to sit down and listen.
Yeah, but how many times can you listen to the same thing over and over again with that same level of empathy, that same level of interest? Do you think people notice when the interest is sort of dying down amongst caregivers?
When mom had dementia and dad also became immobile, Sister Shimani said a very important thing to us. She said, look at them with love, not pity. So you look at them with pity, you'll never be able to serve them. Right? Be thankful they are with you and just give them love through your eyes, through the words that you use. You need patience. I mean, nowadays when dad has a tough time, eating, and I sit with the caregiver, I myself have to hold myself back, right, and train yourself. But all of us are headed there. That's the reality of life, right? But it does take effort. I will not deny that.
Yeah, I think maybe when I see the kind of offerings that Antara has, and those testimonials which are everywhere, I think maybe it's so special because you've gone through this experience yourself.
Yeah, to me, it's a personal story.
And
so I'm
it
quite
shows.
passionate. I'm going through it today as well, right? So I can relate to it.
Yeah.
True.
So I've timed this episode in a way that this releases around Diwali time because it's an incredibly emotional time for many people. Diwali is that time when you want family around, and those at care homes might still have company, but those who are sitting indoors will be all alone. Is there something you could say?
Well, I would say technology is a big boon. And post-COVID, at least seniors have learned to operate YouTube and Facebook and WhatsApp video calls. So I would really urge them to, connect with all the people wherever they are and connect with them. If your grandchildren, wonderful. That's a delight. Go on to Swiggy, order the gulab jamun you always wanted to have. Don't hold yourself back.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, right? If you get a shouting from your son or your daughter. Third, I would say, don't frown on the neighborhood kid whose ball comes into your lawn. Just embrace, and strike a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Call up few friends, right? And that's what I would say.
Life is what you make of it. Have you seen some stories of senior citizens who sort of revive their lives? Which
absolutely.
Could you share a few?
Delightful person staying in Dehradun who is now 94. I'm not saying his name, but each time I go, he surprises me with his vibrancy. He's having a drink. He invites me for a drink to the house. Come summer, I was surprised.
Yeah.
He had a bucket full of mangoes chilled under the lychee tree in Dehradun, inviting his friend, told me, come and sit and have this mango now. Right? So,
what mangoes were they?
right, they were the sherry mango. That was such
lovely.
a delight, And otherwise you'll feel, why should you eat a mango, diabetes, stomach upset? But, nothing of that for that person.
Yeah.
So I was just so amazed to see, and I feel inspired that at 94, then I have this, a mentor of mine who was with us in the company now touching 80. He's living life to the fullest. He's volunteering every Saturday for a NGO. He's a trustee of an educational institution. He just invited me for a talk, for the people. He's consulting still, right? So these people are quite inspirational for me personally.
Yeah. And, if you feel comfortable answering this, but you've had such a busy professional life, do you worry about your retirement ever? Or are you inspired to embrace it?
To be honest, sometimes I do, because the environment around us change a lot, right? In terms of just having people and family around. It was not the way I grew up. I grew up in a joint family. Sometimes I do, but much lesser extent, I would say, having seen my dad and my mom, as well, and having seen what is available now,
Same
right,
here.
which was
Yeah.
not there many years earlier. I
Yeah.
know this is going to improve, so that, puts that aside for a minute. But I would say, if you live life, with enthusiasm, doesn't matter what age you are, of course, your body will change. You'll get hit by something or the other. That's fine. But I would say having access to health doctors
Yes.
is a big psychological comfort, because
Yeah.
even today, I'm able to call up somebody. They come and visit mom and dad home, which is not usual. Right? They're available. They call away. That gives me a lot of comfort.
Yeah. And also, I remember that there was a time when operating or surgery on anyone just above 60 or 70 years of age was considered so risky. And today they're operating on 95-year-olds, 99-year-olds
My dad went through a brain surgery in April this year. He's
at
95.
95.
We had no choice. So we had to, but doctors, and as you know, I told you, are fantastic. And touch wood, you took it very well. So you're right.
Yeah.
Technology has evolved. Caregiving has evolved. So I don't think we need to be worried that much about it. We just need to make sure that we have planned it carefully and have the access to resources.
You're right. And I also think the fact that we have the internet and there's so much of inspiration everywhere and this sharing of experiences like what you've done today, it adds one more piece to the puzzle on, how do I build the latter years of my life. So thank you so much for
Not at all.
sharing.
By the way, you asked me about senior living. There are lots of companies doing engagement and creating communities of seniors.
Okay.
Genwise, Khyal, virtual communities, where they have regular daily workouts on various topics with them. So many people are now paying attention to this, and
Yeah.
companionship.
Companionship is a big thing,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the internet is such a boom for
Absolutely.
senior care. There's so many
Absolutely.
opportunities. I think it all ultimately comes back to how much you can push yourself to embrace any version of old age that life gives you. For me, I'm not anywhere near old yet, but at this age itself, I found loneliness is so prevalent. Friends move out of the city, they're busy with their own life, work, mental health issues, children. You do feel that sense of being alone, and families are not as joined as they used to be. And then I realized that why am I feeling sorry for myself? Why am I just sitting here and saying, oh, everyone's gone, I'm alone? It's Saturday night. Remember a time when, I didn't know which house to go to on a Saturday night, and now I'm alone. So I went out and I started making new friends. And that's the thing. We have an idea set of what friends are, that friends are people you've known for 22 years. I mean, that's very important as well, but friends can be anyone. I mean, I'm approached by a whole gamut of public relations professionals all the time. So I said, hey, if they're calling me, I'm going to make them my friends. So I'm, constantly talking to them and laughing away. I don't know them, never seen them, but they bring that feeling of humanity back into my life, a feeling that there's more. I'm not alone, and there are people. And I often go into shops, bookstores. If someone's talking to me, I'm very happy to talk back. And I like that feeling that a stranger is just another person. You don't always have to look at them and, worry what are their intentions and are they going to stalk me and et cetera, et cetera. Be careful. That doesn't mean just go and talk to anyone, but it's nice to have that feeling of community just in the world around you. And I'm really hoping that this experience in my life right now will help me as I age. I'd really like to know what old age means to you and what are your thoughts about aging. You can write to me at pods@indiatoday.com, or you can message us on 8588 And if you enjoyed this episode and it added something meaningful to your life, then please do leave us a good rating. We are there on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and the India Today website.